This is where art and history collide, a portal into historic small town America where we uncover the moments in time that inspire my work. I'm Whitney Whiteow, your host and your artist, and in today's episode, we are going to dive into Bozeman, Montana, 1900. Well, further back because of the historical relevance of the building we're going to be talking about today. The painting that I am referencing for all of my history was used from a 1905 photograph of downtown Bozeman on Main Street, and I wanted to date it to about 1900 for my painting, and then obviously the history of the City Hall, which we're going to be talking about, goes back to 1887 and a few years in between. So today's episode is going to talk about the City Hall, which is quite an interesting building. It was the City Hall, a jailhouse, the fire hall, the police hall, and an opera house. And it also ended up having like a library and auditorium and stuff like that. So it's quite a combination. So yes, first of all, let's set the stage for the painting and kind of describe it to you. If you are just listening, I'll do my very best to give as vivid of descriptions as I possibly can. But if you have the time, I highly recommend you go to Spotify and click on the video version or go over to YouTube. I have the video version as well. This will be a shorter episode today, and it's kicking off of last week's episode, which was all about Hotel Bozeman. So now we're just moving across the street into the City Hall. So here is the painting. A dusty rose sky settles over Bozeman's East Main Street, casting a warm glow on the Grand Hotel Bozeman and the inviting Opera House. The town hums with life. A horse-drawn carriage awaits at the curb, and a mother and her daughter cross the street, their skirts brushing the dusty earth. Gas lights flicker as a streetcar rolls steadily down the tracks. If you listened to last week's episode, it's just a recap of all of that. It's painted in the golden hour. It's a very romantic painting. There's not a whole lot of clouds in the sky. You get invited to like just step into the painting and be drawn down the street. And so you have these big, beautiful buildings coming off of each side. And then it gets softer and softer and softer as it goes back. And building it, obviously, I start with the sky and then go from the background up to the foreground, and then I scatter in the people and really pop all of those lights right at the end. So you interact with a painting in a soft, nostalgic, like magnetic type of a pull when you look at it, and you can almost see yourself stepping into it and enjoying some of the amenities and shops, and maybe going to the opera to watch one of those, or maybe you're staying at Hotel Bozeman and going up and down the elevator and having dinner at this beautiful big giant 150-seat table dining room. So yeah, it's an invitation to come and explore downtown Bozeman in a very simplistic and romantic way. Okay, that being said, let's go back to 1887 when the site of the City Hall was just a piece of land. And I'm going to read to you, like I prefaced earlier, all of my research is done through newspapers.com and obviously Google Images and stuff like that. But most of my research is done through newspapers.com, where I type in kind of what I'm looking for as far as like keywords, and then the date, and obviously the town, the city itself. And so I find a buttload of newspaper articles, and I have to read and read and read and read, because I like to get it firsthand of people who are actually living there and hear their literal words put onto paper rather than just compiling it from other people's research. I do like that as well, but I just get more in tune and drawn backwards by reading these actual newspapers. So I'm going to read to you out of the Bozeman Chronicle, Wednesday, April 13th of 1887, and this is going to set the stage for why Bozeman needs a city hall. So here we go. Every returning traveler from the state of California entertains his heirs with wondrous stories of the progress and rapid advancement being made by the cities of that state, of the magnificent fortunes being made by enterprising citizens in trade and in the purchase and disposal of real estate. From the other side comes equal marvelous tales of immense fortunes being made in the iron mines of Geobic and in the town lots of Ashland, Wisconsin. These are the results of a progressive movement such as should lift up Bozeman and place it in line with these cities, lately awakened by public spirit. Bozeman, lovely in her natural garments, should be alert to enhance her graces by a proper spirit of enterprise. Hence, we iterate and reiterate and return again to the subject of local improvements in our city. With a city hall, other improvements will follow. This will merely be the new era from which Bozeman will date its second life. Bozeman can be made the most beautiful city in Montana. Here the trees and flowers bloom in profusion, watered by the melting snow which glistens in the summer sunlight upon the mirroring mountains, grandly beautiful, hundreds of feet above us. We are at the head of the largest, richest, and most prolific valley in the territory. Here are the surrounded by resources that should arouse us fully to the importance of our situation and impel us to deserve, by our energy and enterprise, the place we are to fill in the center of such a rich region. We need good hotels, better streets, and more public betterments such as a city hall, fire hall, jail, and every other public building that will impart at once to the visiting stranger an air of sustainability and permanence. Our oldest citizens know full well that our resources are beyond compare, but they seem at a loss how to present these facts to the outside world. We know of no better way than in snowing the outside world that our confidence in the town is measured to a certain extent by the substantial buildings and improvements which are constantly being pushed forward by the residents themselves. A few $1,000s judiciously used in the direction coming as it does from a whole people is hardly felt and will be given uncomplainingly if the citizens can see that the taxes go toward beautifying and building up the town besides improving and enhancing the value of their personal property. At present, the city of Bozeman pays out its taxes solely to office holders, while its main streets remain in an almost impassable condition. But our people have empathetically asserted by their 3/4 vote at the late election that these things shall not be, that we shall get out of the old rut and start ahead again with new life and impetuousness. Bozeman has arrived at an age when no one can feel the slightest degree of anxiety as to its future. Let us then not be content with the slow, steady growth such as characterized it for the past 20 years, but all prepare to take a hold, and with one accord force Bozeman to proud position so justly her due. Let us improve our streets, build waterworks and public buildings, and assist all who wish to make a move that will be improvement upon our old methods. Let us move forward. The people have declared that they have grown weary and impatient to move. Do not misconstrue their motives. The people who pay the taxes have issued their edict, and that is progress. Okay, that really just sets the stage for everything that is about to unfold. Now, I just recently got elected to the Hamilton Downtown Association, so I'm very new to what it actually takes to build and maintain a city. And then when you're just starting out like these guys are, oh my gosh, it gets messy, and politics are just messy anyway. So this is kind of a political episode of the 1800s, late 1800s, and how city politics works and how it's used to be able to better the city. Okay. Here we go. So there was a proposed plan to get a $10,000 loan. And how they were going to do this is that city wanted to use bonds and to get a $10,000 loan so that they could build a city hall, because clearly they needed one. It was just getting to a point they just couldn't take it anymore. And all of the building owners would be a really good idea, up the value of their property because it's going to incorporate such a beautiful city and it's going to grow and la-da-da-da-da. So they proposed to get a $10,000 loan, which equals about $335,000 today. And they said, well, we know this isn't going to build us a big, beautiful building, but it's going to give us a start to build a smaller building, and we won't put windows on the side because then we can just add on to it when we get better funds. And so it passed in 2/3 favor for the proposition. Let's see. Here we go. And so then in June, and so they figured that $10,000 is going to be enough to do this, because they also believed that the property that they were going to put the building on would be donated. They thought, like, rightfully so, people should just donate stuff to the city to better their own town. Yeah, it doesn't really work that way lots of the time. And so the $10,000 budget included the donation of the land. Didn't happen. In 1887, city council approved a motion to buy out this lot that is on the corner of Main and Rouse. And so you can see right there on that corner. And then there's also the conflict of why are they putting it so far east. And like I said in the previous episode, there just wasn't a whole lot of stuff going on past that point. People would have to come all the way downtown to the east side. And so there was worries that way. And then people obviously from the west side of the street, of Main Street, weren't going to see quite an impact to their surrounding areas. And so their taxes are going to go up for maybe something that they didn't really care for. But the businesses close by and property owners close by really wanted it in this spot. So they ended up buying these 3 lots that ended up being 70 by 110 feet on the corner of Main and Rouse. And they purchased them from W.W. Alderson for $3,500. And in today's term, that's $117,000 for a plot of land back in the day. City Hall didn't have, their budget was really low at this point still. And so they ended up transferring over $1,000 from the fire department's budget to put towards this property. And the way it was set up is that they would put down about half of the money up front, and then the other half could come in after the building was starting to get more funding from bonds and stuff came through. So they weren't on the hook for the initial $3,500, because again, their budget was only $10,000. So it's, they only have $6,500 left to figure out how the heck they're going to build this building. It doesn't go very far. All right, the plan now. So they have a little bit of funding. They need a plan. And so they bring in an architect. And the original plan is for a 2-story brick building with a basement underneath for a marshal's office and a jail. Rooms in front are for city hall offices, engine room, and executive apartments for the council. The remainder of the building to be occupied by a hall fashioned similar to a theater with a sloping floor, a large stage, and 1 gallery. The idea for the theater is that it's going to pay kind of for the building itself, so it's got a return on investment. Since it's a city building, they can't really rent out a whole lot of those spaces, so they need something that's going to financially bring money back in to help pay for this building in the future. Few opposed this proposition. There weren't a whole lot of people that did oppose it, but those who did were worried that the bonds that they were going to get to build the city hall is just going to raise their taxes and continuously raise their taxes, and they're not going to receive a return on investment on how all of these buildings are going to play into it. And so that was the only concern, but it passed with a 2/3 vote, and that's all that they needed. The initial idea of the $10,000 loan was just just so naive. It's so sweet, so naive, especially because, land just doesn't get donated. Not everybody donates it. I know in Hamilton, the Dailies, so Marcus Daly and his wife, they donate actually a lot of land. Mostly his wife, Margaret, donated a lot of land. So she was one of the few that really wanted to see her city improve. But for Bozeman, there was no Margaret Dailies, and nobody just donated some land. So they ended up buying it. So $10,000. Now cut that by $3,500. They don't have hardly anything to start with. So they decided that they needed to again hold another vote to acquire $25,000 in bonds this time. That equals about $836,000, selling the bonds at 6% annual interest rate. The bonds would be redeemable in 5 years, and then they're due and payable in 20. So basically it's a 20-year loan that they are taking out, and it accrues 6% interest annually. The city will levy taxes to pay back the bonds. That's how they pay back the bonds. Hopefully they're thinking that this is going to add value and everybody's property is going to go up in value, so they can just levy taxes to pay for it. The tax that will be levied, they put it in their bylaws and whatnot, could not exceed 1 1/4 mils on each dollar of assessed valuation of property taxes. So they can't just raise the roof on this. So it protects the building owners and property owners in the surrounding area. The first payment of interest would start January 1st in 1889 and then semi-annually afterwards. So they're just going to pay the interest. So they're not paying the full amount. They're just paying that 6% interest for the first year and then twice a year until it accrues. And then in 20 years, it should be paid off at that point. So they end up passing it. They end up getting the $25,000. So they bond the city. The city is now bonded. The city is now bonded to that amount. And it was quite controversial because many thought it was illegally voted for. That there was a new law that had passed in Montana. I'd have to pull it up. I don't remember it exactly. But that basically wanted to revitalize infrastructure and stuff and allowed cities to bond themselves, and so they could sell to just about anybody that wanted to buy these bonds for a certain amount of money. And so lots of people ended up putting up a fight a little bit and just no, we don't want this. You illegally voted on it. We weren't in support of it. And it's going to raise our taxes incredibly, and we don't want to be on the hook for it. Anyway, they went through with it because Lord knows they needed a city hall. And they just were kind of pot committed at this point and had to push through. So the estimated costs for the groundwork to go in for the basement was going to be $3,500. The foundation to put in, which was a brick foundation, was $2,800. The enclosing to enclose the entire structure was going to be $21,950. Finishing it, furnishing it, and stuff like that is going to be $6,400. The theater is now $310. Plans to pay the architect is $300, and advertising would be $100, which ends up being about $35,366 in the initial budget. Today's terms, that is $1.2 million to put up the city hall. And so they initially had the $10,000, and then they got $25,000 more. And so they're right about $35,000. And so this is still over budget, but they're hoping that they can either come under budget or that they can sell out some of these offices or whatnot to make up some of that difference. And so in September of 1888, the architect Veerland submitted his plans, and they were accepted by the council. And later, George Hancock, who ended up building or designing the Hotel Bozeman, later revised some of those plans. The building will be 3 stories in height, fashioned according to the French Renaissance style. The bell tower and bristling spires, Gothic windows, triglyphs, spandrels, facades, friezes, cornices, and all handsomely combined. So this is going to be a pretty incredible and unique kind of style of building. So the bell tower is going to go in for the fire department. Construction started in 1887 and it was then completed in 1890. So it took 3 years because there was a lot of financial hangups, right? So in 1887, they had the initial $10,000 and then they went in to get 25,000 more. And so it could keep going. The builders boasted of the foundation of the structure, that it was so sound that you could send a steam engine through it and it wouldn't crack the foundation. Like, the foundation was solid. They were so excited about how solid this brick foundation was. And then the rest of the building, though, ended up having some issues. There was some serious defects in the building of the stage because the stage was sloped. So in the initial designs, they didn't know if they could make a sloped stage or not, if it was going to be flat, if they were going to have the seating to the floors, or if they could take the seating out and for a dance hall and stuff. So they ended up sloping it, but the engineering on it wasn't the best, and there was issues with it. So there were some serious defects in the stage and the arrangement of the lobby, as well as the entrance into and out of the auditorium and gallery. And then upon closer examination, they decided it was fit enough. And so I wonder, though, if it actually was. I didn't read a whole lot further on to see if there was like some damage, like bad damages done, liabilities, but it was all good. Now we get into more money issues. Of course, it's always money issues. The city hall has cost the town of Bozeman and its residents $39,000 up to this point. It's about $1.3 million. And it's going to take another $7,500 to finish, another $251,000 to finish. Like, again, their budgeting was no bueno. So in this additional $7,500, I'll run through the numbers. Iron shutters are going to cost $150, a water closet $50, window shades $50, fitting up the engine room is $75, shelving and casing for $200, steam heating $4,000. Now that one's important. All of the other ones you can kind of get by. Plumbing $1,000, so you need plumbing. Drop curtains for $1,000 and incidentals for $975. So the city council goes back to the people and says, hey, we need $10,000 more. It's already controversial at this point. And they ended up, I don't think it passed, honestly. I think people were pretty upset, and I don't remember it passing, or that one might have passed. There was another city levy that went up later asking for more funds, and the people were just like, no, it's not going to happen. Like, you have proved that we don't want you selling off our city for the bonds, that shit's not really getting done. So after all the controversy and lack of funds, the Opera House first opened with a concert by the Queen City Band, with proceeds used to finance stage scenery and curtains. So at least they had a money maker already. So they opened up and they put it in the papers saying everybody needs to come out because it's also going to help. The donations are going to go directly and the proceeds directly into fitting the stage. And then the city rented out office spaces for $75 a night. So if you wanted to have a meeting, you had to pay $75 to it. And people were actually pretty pissed about that because they weren't charging, like, people who are coming in for the opera, they weren't charging them that much. So to rent out a room was $75, and that kind of pissed them off because they felt it was super unfair. They already gave a ton of money and a ton of effort to make this city hall, and then they're turning around and saying, well, we don't really care, give us more money. So there was some hurt feelings there. After all that said and done, the grand opening was October 13th in 1890 for the Opera House. And then so lots of people came out for that. And the Opera House actually ended up doing quite well. And it was really, really pretty. It was boasted to be like the best opera house west of St. Paul. And it kind of created a show town deal. So in the city hall now, an opera house and whatnot, the second floor housed police headquarters and a large courtroom and a 900-seat auditorium. The bottom floor was the fire department. The basement was the jail. And so they had the jail in the fire department. So they had detainees down there and just, I would actually probably want to go to jail there because at least you would get like some shows every once in a while. Even you couldn't go and watch them, you could probably hear what was going on. So you get some entertainment value that way. And then in 1899, the Opera House purchased a moving picture machine. And so moving pictures came onto the scene. It's not just all live shows. That created some more revenue. Then the Opera House converted into the Municipal Theater in 1916, and then it slowly started to decline. They just didn't keep up with it, and then World War I, then World War II, and Great Depression, all that kind of stuff really hit it. So it had a steady decline. And the building was being outgrown by its tenants and began to suffer, growing shabbier and shabbier. And then the new City Hall building went up, and so it kind of just slowly was getting abandoned. And in 1959, an earthquake cracked the walls of the building. And they tried to save it. They tried to reinforce it and go in there with steel beams and everything and like really harness it. It didn't do very well. The damage was just too much. It couldn't be saved. And so in 1965, it was demolished. All that work, and then they ended up demolishing it because there's just no way to save this poor building and all of its bad politics. Now, it is home to the Seroptimus Park. So you can go in Bozeman on the corner of Rouse and Main Street, and there is this really cute little park that sits there, and they've got table and chairs, and yeah, it's actually really cute. And then you get to look at the Hotel Bozeman right across the way and eat lunch or hang out. And yeah, so that used to be an opera house and a city hall and a fire hall and a jail and all of the things. But yeah, so that is a rundown of the city hall / opera house in Bozeman, Montana, right there. That building on the left side of my painting. If you want to see this painting live, I highly recommend it. It's beautiful. It's gorgeous. It is in Mountain Trails Gallery in Bozeman, which is right there, right next to the annex of the Hotel Bozeman. And so it's going to be there. It's for sale. If you want prints of it, you can't afford the original prints, you can get a hold of me or go through my website. I've got all sorts of stuff like that. But yeah, well, thank you so much for being a part of this episode of Where Art and History Collide. Stick around, and next week we'll probably dive into Helena. So thank you again for being here, and I'll see you around.